This lecture is part of a course entitled Complete Guide for Water Treatment Plant Design. You can find the link in the description box. We have now reached the final step of a water treatment plant, which is the disinfection process. Let's start by an overview. We have now reached the final step of a water treatment scheme. We have already covered the screening process, which is the removal of the big particles. Then the water will undergo the coagulation and flocculation process, which is the chemically enhanced sedimentation, where we had the formation of a big flux that can settle down by a gravity in the clarifier. Then the water will move to the filtration process, which is the polishing process. We will remove the remaining small particles that weren't able to settle down by gravity. And now the water will move to the final step, which is the disinfection. Now I have a very clear water. If I look to my treated water before disinfection, I will find that it looks great. It looks very clear. It is very palatable, but actually it still contains very small particles that are mainly the viruses, the bacteria, and the protozoa that cannot be removed in these stages and will need further treatment by disinfection. In this course, we will be covering the chlorination technique and the UV technique. We will also see how to safely store this water. As you can see, most of the times we will need an elevated tank to store the treated water, and then this water will be distributed by gravity to the inhabitants. Before disinfection in the previous stages, we were able to remove particles that have a size larger than 1 micron. So whether these are sand, these are coarser particles, these can be easily removed in the sedimentation process or the filtration process. We can also remove some Giardia, Lamblia, and Cryptosporidium. These are very dangerous protozoa. They can actually be partly trapped in the filtration process. Also, we were able to remove some bacteria, but notice we have some smaller bacteria in the range of 0.1 to 1 micron. Also, we still have viruses, and viruses are actually very small to be filtered, so we will need an extra measure to remove these viruses, these bacteria, and also maybe some Giardia, Lamblia, and Cryptosporidium that weren't able to be removed in the previous stages. So this sedimentation and filtration, the previous processes, were actually able to remove and to highly reduce the number of pathogens in water. So we got rid of most of the particles, but we still have very dangerous particles within our water. We still have viruses, we still have some bacteria and protozoa, and we need this disinfection stage to kill these remaining pathogens. The most widely used technique is actually the chlorination, and the chlorination is a very effective and easy technique to kill bacteria and viruses that can cause deadly diseases. Those are mainly responsible of very dangerous diarrheal diseases like the E. coli, the typhoid fever, salmonella, and the cholera. We have many disinfection methods that can be used. We have first of all the chlorination, which is the most widely used method for disinfection. The chlorine actually can kill or inactivate the pathogens by oxidizing and destroying their cellular structure. Chlorine is a very powerful way to disinfect the water. We have the UV radiation. When using UV, we don't need chemicals. After all, chlorine is a chemical. UV radiation does not involve any chemical. Ultraviolet is actually a light, so the water will pass through a bulb, a light, and this light will disinfect the water by damaging the DNA of the microorganisms, and this will prevent their reproduction. So actually, we will be inactivating these microorganisms. Then we have the ozonation. The ozonation is actually a super powerful way to treat the water. This will destroy the microorganisms by breaking down their cellular structure, but the ozonation is very expensive and has also other major drawbacks, like the way of monitoring the level of ozone in water. It is a difficult technique, while monitoring the chlorination is actually very easy. So ozonation is less used compared to chlorination and UV radiation. Now, what are the characteristics of my disinfectant and how to choose it? First of all, my disinfectant must be effective to kill the pathogenic microorganisms. So obviously, it has to kill these remaining pathogens. It has also to be non-toxic to humans and domestic animals, so it has to be safe for consumption. Also, it has to be safe for fish and other aquatic species. It has to be also easy and safe to store, transport, and dispense, obviously. It has to be low cost, and this is mainly the case of the chlorination. It has also to be easily and reliably analyzed within the water. So, for example, if I'm using a chlorination, the monitoring of chlorine in water is actually very easy. The analysis of the level of chlorine of water is an easy procedure. It must be palatable, so it must be accepted by the consumer. It doesn't have to have a strong smell nor a strong odor. And finally, it is preferable to have this residual protection in drinking water. It is actually a very major feature, and this is provided by the chlorination. What does it mean to have residual protection? So after the disinfection process, after eliminating the viruses, bacteria, and the protozoa, I still need to have a small amount of this disinfectant within the water. And this is the case of chlorine. We will still have what is known as residual chlorine that will protect the water from recontamination, especially when this water is stored. Now, what are the factors that can influence the water disinfection? First of all, I have to know the nature and the number of microorganisms to be destroyed in the water. I have already said that we still have mainly three categories of pathogens in the water. We still have the bacteria, viruses, and protozoa. So this is the nature of the contamination now. Later on, we will see that chlorine is very effective in removing bacteria and viruses, but less effective in removing protozoa, while UV light is very effective against protozoa. So this is why it is very important to know what is the nature of the contaminants that are remaining in the water, and also the number of the microorganisms, because the higher the number of the contamination, the higher the concentration of the disinfectant is needed. So based on this nature and number of microorganisms, I can know the type and the concentration of the disinfectant that is used. The higher the concentrations, so for example, if I'm using chlorine, the higher the chlorine level, the higher the efficiency of the treatment. But of course, we will see later on that we have limitations. Another factor that affects the water disinfection is the water temperature. The higher the temperature, the better it is, because the more rapid the disinfection will be. Also, the time of contact is an important factor, because the longer the contact with the disinfectant, the better it is. The nature of water to be disinfected. In other words, how efficient was my previous treatment processes. So how efficient was my sedimentation and my filtration steps. Because if the water still contains colloidal particles, or if my water is still turbid, this will create a protection or a shield layer that will protect viruses, the bacteria and protozoa, especially when using the UV lights, and the disinfection process will be hampered. So this is why it is very important to highly reduce the turbidity before the disinfection process. I need a very clear water, otherwise the disinfection will not really be effective. And also the water's pH is a factor that can influence the effectiveness of the disinfection process. For example, when using chlorine, I need to have a pH that is neutral or below 7.